Welcome back, everyone, to today's Explainer. We're stepping straight into a very dark and, honestly, deeply suspenseful narrative today, all pieced together directly from our source material. We're going to examine a chilling sequence of events that reportedly took place at the St. Mary's Sacred Heart Church. Now, this isn't just your standard ghost story. It's a complex, terrifying account of possession, deeply buried secrets, and the extreme lengths people will go to just to protect their reputations. So let's get right into it.
This right here is the central mystery we need to unpack today. It's a question that immediately hooks you, right? Mostly because it contrasts two absolute extremes. On one hand, you've got a sacred, holy sanctuary, a place we traditionally associate with purity, safety, and divine protection. But on the other hand, you have a deadly sin, a literally and figuratively buried, horrifying secret right on those very grounds. So what actually happens when pure terror clashes with a holy environment? Well, as we'll see as we go through the narrative today, the results are absolutely catastrophic.
Section 1. The unsettling arrival at St. Mary's Sacred Heart Church, Calcutta. So our story actually kicks off on the last Saturday of March, which really sets the stage for the madness that follows. The source introduces us to a 22-year-old woman named Maria. Now, the head of the nun training center, Mother Superior Agnes, introduced Maria to everyone as a special child of God. But honestly, Maria's demeanor raised immediate red flags. Fellow nuns, especially a woman named Ruma, noticed right away that Maria seemed to be there completely against her will. I mean, she exuded this incredibly deep, heavy sadness. She wouldn't make eye contact, her face was completely blank, and she just immediately retreated to her room. It was this forced presence that instantly threw off the whole devoted, training atmosphere of the place.
Section 2. The possession takes hold. A horrifying midnight discovery.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the sense of dread escalates rapidly here, from just a feeling of unease to straight-up terror. The source material draws a super sharp, terrifying contrast between the Maria that arrived and the Maria they discovered late at night. The normal Maria was noted as being an educated, beautiful, though obviously profoundly melancholic young woman. But when Ruma decided to go spy on Maria's room late at night, she witnessed a horrifying physical transformation. The possessed Maria had limbs that were completely contorted, looking almost like she had been twisted into a broken rubber doll. The skin around her eyes had turned into these deep black pits, and her teeth were literally described as looking like burning coal. It was a complete destruction of the human form, no way around it. In that visual horror, it very quickly turned into visceral violence. Because when Mother Superior Agnes rushed into the room with a holy cross to confront whatever was happening, the entity reacted violently. According to the accounts, Maria leapt at her like a wild animal and viciously bit right into Mother Agnes's hand, tearing the flesh. Then she retreated to her chair and began to speak. But it wasn't just her voice. She was speaking in 2 to 3 overlapping voices all at the same time. The sheer panic was so intense that Mother Agnes actually dropped the holy cross on the floor.
Section 3. The failed cleansing. Father Steve's holy water intervention.
So, after the trauma of that first night, the church leadership obviously tries to take control. The very next morning, Father Steve steps in. He's totally convinced this is a demonic presence, not some medical issue. So he attempts a cleansing using holy water and group prayer. And the reaction is extreme. Wherever that holy water touched Maria's skin, it left severe acid-like burns. Agonizing stuff. And while this intervention did force the entity to temporarily back down, leaving Maria weak and stuck in bed for days, the calm didn't last at all. The source notes that when she finally ate, she devoured her food ravenously, almost like a starved animal. Soon after, she totally relapsed, speaking in multiple foreign languages she had never even learned. Clearly, the local in-house intervention had completely failed.
Section 4. The exorcism begins. Friday night with Father Edmund.
Now, what's really interesting here is that, realizing they are totally out of their depth, the church calls in a specialist. A major exorcism like this required incredibly strict, systematic preparation. It's a highly dangerous ritual. Father Edmund arrives on Friday and deliberately waits until the dead of night. They followed the steps meticulously. Step 1, Maria was tied securely to a chair to stop the kind of wild, violent outbursts we saw earlier. Step 2, she was surrounded by a protective barrier, a ring of crosses and lit candles. And Step 3, Father Edmund began the continuous application of holy water and specialized prayers or mantras. They were treating this with absolute severity.
But as Father Edmund's prayers intensified, so did the supernatural chaos in that room.
The entity inside Maria began taunting them, wildly shifting between the voice of a tiny infant and a super deep, booming male voice. Then, and this is a moment of pure cinematic terror described by the source, Maria screamed, and every single candle in the room blew out instantly, pitch black. Even more alarming, the actual physical ground beneath the cross began to crack open. The demonic entity wasn't just resisting the exorcism, it was provoked and it was fighting back with tremendous force.
Section 5. A dark secret revealed, as the demon forces a confession.
And this brilliantly illustrates where our narrative suddenly shifts from a supernatural thriller into devastating true crime. The entity inside Maria literally forced Mother Agnes, whose own eyes turned pitch black in the process, to reveal a hidden, tragic timeline. See, this wasn't just a random haunting. A year prior, Maria had a forbidden romance with a young priest, Father Neil. 4 months after that, Maria discovered she was pregnant. To protect Father Neil's holy vows and save the church's reputation, Father Neil and Mother Agnes actually conspired against Maria. On a stormy night, they drugged her to force a premature birth, and then at 2 a.m., in what is absolutely the most horrifying revelation of this entire explainer, Neil and Agnes took the newborn, who was still completely alive, and secretly buried it in the graveyard behind the church.
To cover up their tracks, they lied to Maria. They told her the baby had tragically died during childbirth. Now, the source explains that this immense, unbearable grief completely broke Maria. She totally withdrew from the world. She would spend her midnights weeping out in the very graveyard where, entirely unknown to her, her own child was buried. And it was this profound sorrow that made her an empty vessel. Her weakened psychological state left her totally vulnerable to possession by vengeful spirits residing in that graveyard. Most specifically, the angry, restless spirit of her own murdered child, seeking justice.
Section 6. The final retribution. The spirits take their revenge.
So the truth is out, the perpetrators are in the room, and the spirits are ready to enact their final judgment. The haunting reaches this brutal crescendo. To force their hand, the possessed Maria violently twists and actually breaks her own arm. That prompts the terrified Father Edmund to summon Father Neil into the room. Once Neil arrives, the supernatural activity just peaks. Maria looks up, and suddenly, both Mother Agnes and Father Neil are lifted entirely off the ground. They are levitating helplessly in the air above the room. They had lost all control of the situation.
So, the crucial point is what happens next. As Neil and Agnes hang suspended in the air, the entity speaks its final chilling verdict through Maria. One father, one punishment, or translated from the Hindi phrase, ek baap, ek hi saza. It's an incredibly dark, poetic declaration of vengeance from a child who was denied its life, aimed squarely at the biological father who orchestrated its demise.
The retribution is immediate, and it is fiery. The candles that had previously been blown out suddenly reignite, but this time they fly upward, catching the clothes of the levitating Neil and Agnes completely on fire. Suspended in the air and totally beyond the reach of help, the two guilty figures are burned to death right there in the room. The source notes that after this, Maria's body simply collapsed. She actually survived the ordeal physically, though forever scarred by the trauma. Meanwhile, the resulting massive scandal and tragedy forced both the City Holy Church and St. Mary's Sacred Heart Church to close their doors forever. Which brings us to a provocative thought I want to leave you with today. This explainer outlines a terrifying supernatural event, sure, but it really asks a very grounded, deeply human question. In this narrative, who were the true monsters? Was it the vengeful demonic spirits that possessed Maria? Or was it the trusted, holy figures, Neil and Agnes, who committed cold-blooded murder simply to save their own reputations? It's a dark reminder that sometimes human evil can easily rival anything found in the supernatural. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll see you in the next explainer.